Hey, I'm Josh Treatise, the campaign manager for Washington Families Standing Together. I've just taken a leave of absence from my usual job where I serve as the advocacy director for Equal Rights Washington, which is Washington State's gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender civil rights organization. And the reason I took this leave is because we've passed a series of domestic partnership laws in the last few years, and presently there's an attempt to repeal the last part of the law.
And what is Washington Families Standing Together?
Washington Families Standing Together is a great campaign. It's made up of over 120 organizations, labor organizations, senior organizations, just a really, really wide spectrum of organizations who all believe that gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender families should have rights. And they're just appalled that there is a group of organizations in Washington who are working to repeal the state's domestic partnership law.
And can you tell me a little bit about what the state's domestic partnership law does, or what it includes?
Sure. The state's domestic partnership law in Washington is what would be called a civil union law in many states. So it's all the rights and responsibilities of marriage under state law. Everything from hospital visitation to community property. We're a community property state here. The right to dissolution, to have a divorce. The right, if you're a public sector employee, to things like pensions and health care benefits, and very, very important things that go to the economic security of families, and of course peace of mind for families.
Now, something that the senator that's leading the fight for Referendum 71 said to me is that domestic partnerships aren't necessary because gay and lesbian couples can get all of those rights just by going to a lawyer and filling out some paperwork. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that correct, or how does that work?
One of the things that we find is that people really don't have a very good understanding of marriage, or for that matter, domestic partnerships and civil unions. A lot of people are under the misapprehension that gay and lesbian couples could protect themselves through contract. And that's just, absolutely false. Because so many of the rights and benefits of marriage or civil union or domestic partnerships are granted by the state, and only if you have one of these legal statuses. So you can't leave your pension to another person unless the law allows you to leave it to that person. And in Washington State previously, the only person you could leave your pension to would be your legal spouse, and now with the domestic partnership law, also your registered domestic partner. So one of the things that we have to do is really educate people and get rid of these, crazy misunderstandings that people can protect themselves through contract. Of course, even if you could protect yourself through contract, A, you would have to spend a lot of money going to lawyers, and B, you would have to have the foresight to understand everything that you had to do in order to protect yourself. And that is ultimately the beauty of marriage in particular, is the vast array of protections that it provides for people who, frankly, typically don't adequately protect themselves but for marriage.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between marriage and the domestic partnership legislation?
It's really important that we understand that there are huge differences between marriage, domestic partnerships, and civil unions. And I'm going to start what I think is one we don't talk nearly enough about, and that is that, in America, language matters. And the very use of different language to describe different people who have the same relationship stigmatizes people as less. That is to say, everybody understands what a marriage is. And to say to gay and lesbian people, well, you can't have a marriage, but you can have a civil union, even if it were the same, basket of rights, marriages or civil unions, everybody would know that, gay and lesbian people were being stamped with a badge of inferiority. Because in America, a hallmark of full citizenship is, in fact, the freedom to marry, and the inability to marry is a badge of inferiority. But the bottom line is this, is not only is language a big issue, but so too are the fact that the rights and benefits of domestic partnerships and civil unions are substantially less than that of marriage. One of the greatest rights of getting a marriage license is that what the state is saying to the federal government is, please give to these people all the rights and benefits of marriage. When you get a civil union or a domestic partnership, the state is making no attempt to say to the federal government, please give these couples the 1,100 plus rights of marriage, like Social Security survivors benefits, immigration rights, equal treatment under the IRS tax code, and veterans benefits. In fact, when a state has two different regimes, depending on whether you are heterosexual or a member of the LGBT community, what the state is saying is you can draw distinctions between families because we do that too. And then, of course, there are issues of portability. That is to say, every state, for that matter, every country has marriage. And the way I often describe it, it's kind of like an electric, socket. You can go if you have, the right plug, and you can just plug, marriage in, and it's universal. You can plug it in to, any country or any state. But domestic partnerships and civil unions, they're very rare. They have a different socket. So states, you can't plug in to places that don't have civil unions or domestic partnerships. For the most part, they evaporate, at the borders of the state where it is conferred.
Can you tell me about the history of domestic partnership in Washington?
In 2006, Washington State Legislature finally passed an anti-discrimination law which prohibited discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in housing and employment. And that was a great breakthrough. After 29 years it took us to try to get that bill passed, as opposed to, say, a state like Massachusetts, where you have had those protections based on sexual orientation since 1989. Then that same year, in 2006, we lost a marriage equality lawsuit. And that was really devastating. It was a deeply divided court. They found that procreation was a compelling interest, really quite shocking, because I think it's great when older heterosexual couples who are well past the time of having kids get married. But at any rate, we went through a big conversation here in Washington about what to do next because we lost this lawsuit. And what we realized, we developed a couple of guiding principles after having forums all over the state and after speaking to a lot of stakeholders. And what we decided is, first of all, we were going to continue to work for marriage equality. Secondly, we decided that since this was going to take a while, since we're a referendum state and we knew we would have to ultimately have a majority of voters who would back us, is in the interim we would work to protect our families through a system of domestic partnerships as quickly as possible, because real families were in crisis right now and they couldn't wait for marriage. So we would do everything we could to protect our families as quickly as possible. And thirdly, we realized that marriage is not the be-all and end-all of the LGBT civil rights movement. There are a lot of issues that face our community that won't be dealt with through achieving marriage equality, although it's very important, and we would continue to work on a wide range of issues in addition to marriage equality. And then lastly, we recommitted ourselves to looking for intersections with other communities, because what good is marriage equality and other legal protections if you're a member of another minority community and you're facing discrimination because of your race or your religion or your ethnicity or your nationality, so that we would try to work really very broadly.